Good evening, and welcome back to the Not So Perfect Bigfoot Show. Tonight, I have with me Becca Green from Alabama. I'm so very honored to have her tonight. I see you. Hey, Becca. I'm so honored to have her tonight. I originally met her husband, Mark Green, and he just a love and just he talked to me about his wife and I don't know if you have ever heard of their YouTube channel. It's called Cedar Creek Bottom Farmstead Life. If you've never heard of it, you probably have if you're watching this. Please go to YouTube, look up Cedar Creek Bottom Farmstead Life with Mark and Rebecca Green. Make sure you hit the notification bell and subscribe. You will fall in love with these people, or I say these people like they're strange, but they're this couple. When I first started speaking to Mark, when he would speak of his wife, you could feel that love resonate, and I could feel it. And he talked to me about the first time he seen her walk across the plant, and he says, "Wow, look at that." And his friend said, "No, Bo, she's taken." He said, "Well," but that always stayed with me. And she was really gracious enough to come on tonight. She has been around Bigfoot activity. Anyone that follows them, their YouTube channel is not just about Bigfoot. It's about herbs. It's about farmsteading. They have people on their programs that they tell their stories, and it's like a big wholesome family. And if that's what you're looking for, even if it's not what you're looking for, just jump in on one show. You will love them, and they're like peanut butter. You're going to get addicted to them. I love them. Now I do know she grew up in Riverdale, Georgia. Yep. And she was in Florida for a little stint of her life, and they went back to Georgia. But what I really love about her, she is like me. She is a plant person, an herb person. I tell you, she is a very beautiful soul and a very old soul. And it is an honor and a pleasure to have her tonight and to tell her story. And I think her story is very important. In just the few minutes that we have talked, there's so much more to her than what you see on the face of YouTube. And Becca, I'm going to let you start wherever you would like to start.
All right. Well, since you mentioned the Florida part, everybody, my whole entire life, wonders why I don't talk Southern. And it is probably because I was in Florida during those years where you learn to talk. So all of the northern people that vacation in Florida, I guess it had an effect on me being a Yankee in my way of talking. I never had a Southern accent until Mark and I got married. That I started gaining finally a Southern accent. If you listen to my two sisters, Southern is cornbread. What's the most Southern thing you can find? Because they are that. My youngest sister, I would say, y'all know the people that come out after the storms, how they talk like real redneck. That's my youngest sister.
She would be the one that the media would go straight to for an interview.
Yes. You pick out the worst sounding person, and that's going to be my sister. She's very smart. She was always the smartest one of all of us. But to hear her talk the minute she opens her mouth, I did not get that. I got teased for being a Yankee my whole life. Never was north of Georgia most of my entire life.
So you kind of got the best of the both worlds. You have that Southern charm, but you can hear you speak when you talk. You can hear what you're saying. Right. What was it like growing up in Georgia?
Oh, growing up in Georgia. For me, of course, it was 1980 when I was there, way back. We walked to school every day. It was not uphill both ways in the snow, foot deep. But we did walk to school every day and back home. And it was me, my two sisters, my dad was there, my mom was there, and we lived with my grandmother. Cedartown was involved in a horrible flood right around 78 or whatever, maybe 79. I can't remember. I was little back then. But my grandfather on my dad's side had already passed before I was born. So we came back to Cedartown to stay with my grandmother and to help take care of them, or of her rather. And it was a 1-bedroom house with 6 people in it. The first year or 2 there, it was awesome. My grandmother taught me to quilt because we had people, her family, come around with the racks from the ceiling, and we sat up under there threading needles for them, and she taught us how to actually make our own quilt blocks, taking a square and putting scraps on it, kind of like quilting it and sewing it together. And I remember those things. I also at the same time was learning to crochet and to knit. And I remember watching my grandmother do embroidery and canning. We had chickens. We had a 1/4 acre lot now. It might have not even been that big. It might have been just 1/8 of an acre. In the city limits, we were the last house at the city limit sign. And half of our backyard was chickens. And people would come buy chickens for dinner from our grandmother. And we, of course, had chicken a lot for dinner. Then the chicken pens come down and the garden would go up. And when I was in 2nd grade, my dad decided, well, now let me back that up just a hair. My mother had me at 35. So my dad was 36. I was there first, if you can imagine. So I'm like 8 or 9, maybe 8. I can't remember. It's 2nd grade. My dad decides to show the world he's still a young man. So we go out to where all the young people are, cliff diving and all that good stuff. My dad finds the one rock and lands on it in the water. My mother's afraid of water. She was swimming out there. That's when they all realized something was wrong, and they got our dad and got him out. And of course, that's really when the bad times for us started. My dad did home improvement. He was a handyman, did a lot of roofing. We were on the roofs with him even. And he broke his leg in 3 places, shattered his ankle, shattered his knee. When they got him healthy enough to actually walk, he had to wear a brace for the rest of his life. And not many people want to hire a visible handicap to be on their roof, first of all, let alone do anything on their home. So like I said, it went downhill from there. Our dad was the town drunk. Eventually, we finally did get pulled from the home and put into foster care, but we were under DFACS, Department of Family Children Services. We called it DFACS there. It's DHR, I think, here. But we were under their eye the entire time that we lived in Georgia, come to find out. 6 people in a 1-bedroom house, So we went into foster care. Turns out it was for every reason in the book. The only reason that was not there was drugs. So we had abuse, we had drunk, we had not being taken care of, we had all the stuff. We were, all 3 of us, bullied in school. We all were just looking for the way out, if that makes sense. So foster care. My middle sister we all got placed together. And of course, she had her favorite of all 3 of us. And the other 2 of us got booted out of that home. So the middle sister was in that home for a long time. And then she moved into a second home. The youngest sister was in, I think, one more home than the middle sister. I think I was in, see, it was ninth grade, and I was in 6 or 7 homes throughout my 4 years of high school. So one of the foster homes was not a good home either. But all of this kind of led to some of the decisions I made throughout my life, if that makes sense. I met my first husband, wildly enough, at church and through a fight from my dad, if that, is not a good way to start a relationship. And it's what started the relationship. Needless to say, it didn't work. 4 years later, he was no different than what I grew up in, basically. So you learn as you go. And then the second husband, and yeah, this is why I say the journey to where I am now is not a pretty journey. The second husband left me for somebody else, basically. And I had my daughter at the time. She was 4 when we finally divorced. She was a year and a half old the first time he left, but I let him come back in because my daughter needed him. If you've ever sat and watched a child scream because he left the house, she knew what was going on at a year and a half old. I couldn't get out of the car and pump gas. It was bad. So I let him come back, and we were married still, but in the end, he finally moved on. Ella was 4, and she could handle it at this point. Then came my third marriage. Damsel in distress was a problem. I had a wreck in front of his house. We had a child together later after we got married. Found out that he had a desire to be a woman. So I now tell people I have an ex-wife. So needless to say, that marriage didn't work either. My second, that marriage actually, when we had our discussion on that marriage, he said, well, this is the way I feel. And I said, well, I'm married for life, so I will support you. But we'll just be married. I'll support you. So what actually ended that marriage was my second child passed away. She had a genetic disorder. So that was really, in reality, what caused that marriage to really crumble. From there, I stayed single. I was like, that's it. I'm done. No more. That was in 2009 when it finished. And Mark and I met in 2013. Like you said, we met at Honda. And it was funny, like you said also, he saw me at the plant. Everybody told him I was married. Well, I can't remember how he ended up on a dating app, and he saw my picture. And he sent me a message, and he said, are you married? I was like, no, I'm on a dating site. I'm not married. He said, oh, okay. And I told him right off the bat, I said, I don't date online. I said, if you want to date, we'll meet and we'll talk. So the next thing I know, he's bringing me a bag of peas to work. Purple whole peas. So, yep, it was funny. And like I said, it's been done since then. We have been together. We had some snags, here and there, but I wouldn't change anything if there was a way that we could have found each other sooner and, loved each other longer, like the old saying goes, I would be all for it, except if it was sooner, I wouldn't be who I am. So, and my husband, Mark, he was in a 17-year marriage with his wife and his 2 kids. And if that had ended any sooner, he wouldn't be who he was either. So I wouldn't change anything. And I can't hear you.
It's the mute button, Mama.
I thought so.
Sometimes the bumps in the road, the broken hearts, the just sometimes just being taken down on your knees in life and learning to get back up.
Yeah.
That's where you develop your character, and it takes
Yeah.
the right one at the right time to understand that.
That was a lot of it at the right time, is what it took. In the break, I joined a dating site. And, a lot of people are like, the one I joined, I hate to say, was the best thing that has ever happened to me beyond having, my daughters. Um, I met so many people. It was called Date Hookup, and it had chat rooms or message boards, and you just go in there and post. Call it Facebook if you want, because that's what this dating site was like. So I got into there. They had one called Georgia Chat, and of course I'm Georgia, so we would go in there and we'd cut up. And the most important thing was they would get together. The whole group of everybody in Georgia would pick a place and go meet. So we met for karaoke. We met for rock climbing and camping and kayaking. And I really got to get out there and just do things with nobody judging me, nobody trying to mold me into anybody. I had to learn what I wanted to do and be, and all that. So I learned to ride motorcycles then. I mean, I bought my own motorcycle through that period. I love it. I can't rock climb as much anymore because of the wrist problem. But I would go try it in a heartbeat. I love it. Anything outdoors, love it. So
You had me at kayaking.
yep.
I would almost join a group like that just to have a kayaking partner.
Yep. That was kind of what this was, just something, because I had my daughter. I was a full-time single parent. I was in school for environmental horticulture. So on the weekends that my daughter went to her dad's, I was by myself with nothing to do and no clue of what I even wanted to do. So I just sat there and joined that site one day and pulled myself out of my shell.
Was that the first time in your life where it stopped long enough for you to be alone?
Yes, that was it.
And it takes that silence. And I always tell people why. I always tell people the damage life did to me is when I stopped. And
Yep.
it's like slamming on brakes and everything just falls forward in the front of
that was when I finally grieved the loss of my daughter and everything. Because always in the past, you're trying to be what everybody else needs you to be, because they got to keep going. It doesn't matter about you.
Being strong for
until
everyone.
It's not there. Yeah.
So if you don't mind, for someone out there that may be listening, and it's funny that we're even talking about, well, kind of on point that we're talking about this. I got an email the other night, someone with a sick child. What would you say to a mother or father that's having to deal with that loss? How do you hold on and you dig your heels in, you find the strength? And I'm not trying to upset you, but if I can tap into that and someone's listening.
That's when you experience the loss of a child, you've got to understand the reason. And for me, there was no reason other than maybe I can help somebody else through it. We had MPS, which is a genetic disorder, and you just have to look that up. It stores in your joints and your organs and stuff. So when they gave us that, it was like a death sentence. We had a bone marrow transplant. We had 10 days of chemo. We ended up through this whole process. We had one bad day throughout the whole thing versus the nightmare they told us to expect. She had one day where she was throwing up and she was running a fever and really crying and, and everything. One day, that was it. I went from having a child that couldn't walk. She took her first steps in the hospital. went from having a child that didn't have any teeth yet. At a year and a half old, she still hadn't cut her first tooth. She cut her teeth in the hospital. I mean, so many good things that when you look back, you've got to go, I know the Lord knew what he was doing, because he gave me the good things before he took her, because he knew I would not be able to handle it otherwise. So look at the good things. Remember the good things. Look at all the stuff you've got instead of focusing on what you lost. And that's what I would tell somebody.
It's good advice. That's very good advice. That's from the heart too.
Yes.
So when you had this first time along in your life, looking back with all you went through a lot. You just touched the surface of it, and that's fine. It shaped you as the person that you are. When you come on the channel with your husband, you have so much energy, and your energy just radiates to the people in the chat, and they feel it, and you lift so many people up. Is that who you became, or is it a combination of who you became and the person in your life that appreciates it in the life that you have now? Could you have one without the other?
No. The way I look at like where I am now, and it's what I tell everybody. Let me point back out. I got 3 sisters. I really have 7 total, because my dad had a whole life before us. But the 2 full-blooded sisters, I am a combination of the past and everything that got me to where I am. The past helped create me. The middle sister forgets the past existed. She is only what she is now. That had nothing to do with it. The youngest sister wants nothing to do with the currents. She wants to live in the past. 3 different examples of how people deal with the same set of things. I'm not successful by most people's measures, but I'm happy. I make my mistakes. I annoy my husband just like everybody else does. I still sometimes have to learn how to deal with things properly. My sister in the middle, she deals with the here and now and forgets that the past helped create the here and now. So she's not dealing with things the proper way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
She's leaving out half of the equation of how she got to where she is. The youngest sister, like I said, she kind of still lives the way we grew up. 6 people in a 1-bedroom house with no money and not the right stuff to take care of anything. I know that sounds bad to say on air, but it's the way that all of us are. We've gone 3 different routes and become 3 different people. Without everything I have gone through, I would not be where I am today, and I would not be able to handle today without what I have now. Like Mark right there beside me, supporting me, being there, loving me.
This is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you have one that is scared to look back. You have one that was scared to move forward. And you have someone that have balanced the both. And it's like treading water. And I think with each one you have one that stays where they're comfortable at, so they'll probably never know a new life.
Right.
You have one that if she acknowledges, the past and the things that hurt her and the things that she's had to pick herself up from, it may impede her in her success that she's having now. And you have one like you that has treaded water, and for each pain life gave you, you made progress.
Yes.
And you were stronger than the heartbreak. and that's what life taught you. And
Yes.
so I kind of view you as the one that treaded water between the two worlds. Now, I
Yep.
disagree with you on not being successful, because to me, being successful is
I
being,
agree.
finding yourself, being loved,
Yes.
finding someone to truly love you.
Yes.
One
That's
person,
why I said not in most people's
yeah.
thought process.
But most people go through their life and they're never truly loved. And
Right.
you found someone and you
Yes.
have that. So that kind of makes you successful, above average,
Yeah.
man.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. So at what point in your life, when you and Mark are doing your show, you always whip out this book of herbs, and I love it. At what point in your life was that, from having the gardens as a child and watching things grow in the field? Because I know when we were a child or a kid, we would run out there and pick cucumbers off the vine.
Yep.
We didn't even wash them off. We would just,
Yep.
just, is that where that come from?
Probably so. So like there was a point in my life that I said that I was never going to be like my parents and grandparents or anything. My grandmother even always threatened that she was going to come back and haunt me one day. Well, guess what? She did. I love all the stuff she loved. I crochet, I cook, I garden, I plant. My favorite plants are the ones that she grew. So yeah, that's really where my love of gardening and everything started. Because like one of the first things we did was plant the yard. Every year we planted caladiums, and we had 1/8 of an acre. You can't do a lot, but we managed to do it. Behind our house was a junkyard that led to a creek. So we would always go through and play with the stuff in the junkyard. We would pick the berries on the way, and we would always ride to the mountain and pick blueberries in season and blackberries when they were ready. There was a spring we would go to and get water from. I mean, Granny was the herbalist. I really believe she didn't get to teach me what she needed to teach me, but I think she was really more of an herbalist than she let on. She was the one that all the people in the neighborhood would bring their babies to her to kiss the whooping cough away or to cure the warts or whatever. The whole neighborhood brought them to my grandmother. So I think she had a lot more knowledge, if our situations had been different, that she could have passed on. So yeah, it started there, and it stayed with me. When I got out of foster care and I went to my first house with my best friend, the first thing I did was plant plants along the sidewalk leading up to the front door. Every house I lived in, I planted something. Even though I knew I was moving, I needed to plant. I needed to get my hands dirty. My dream was always to have a landscaping business that I did out of my own nursery that I grew all the plants in. That's what I wanted. And I started it, but in today's world, I am the wrong sex and color. So, not many people want a white woman landscaping their yard. They want the little Mexican guy. So, but yeah, that's where it started when I was growing up.
So if you had the opportunity, I know you say the landscaping is what you wanted to do, but you grow love. Could you sell your plants that you grow or give them as gifts to? I could see you going out in the community, like where the disabled person couldn't tend their garden, and you plant a little flowers of love there for them. That just, oh, girl, you're awesome.
We have a little greenhouse over here that when I wasn't working, I was growing the plants for the people. And anybody that come by, I'd send plants home with them. I still do occasionally, but I'm not here like I was before. I was working at Tractor Supply, crazy hours, but it wasn't a lot of hours. So I swapped jobs. Now I'm working the one I'm at now, and 46 hours a week. But it's Monday through Friday. So the weekend, you can only do so much. So the greenhouse it fell to the wayside for now. Pay off the camper and the truck and the tractor, and I'm back in business with my greenhouse. So
I like that. I like that you said for now. For now. I like that.
It's for now.
So when you come to Alabama, what was it like making the transition? Because you came in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you come for Mark, or did you come on your own accord just to get a break from everything that was going on?
Well, originally, I started working at Honda in February of 2013. And in April, I had rented a house that was closer to Honda in a town called East Aboga. I met Mark in June or July that year. And I was actually on my way back to Georgia when we met. So I went and stayed at my sister's house because my daughter was staying at her dad's while I was working at Honda, and that was just too far for me. I had to get back to where she was. So I moved back to Georgia, in with my sister for a little while, and I started cleaning houses and helping people do remodeling jobs like my dad. Imagine that. I was making decent money, and Mark and I were still talking, and we were still dating, and he got me some cleaning jobs out this way, and eventually we moved in together. So yeah, I'm back in Alabama because of Mark, really. So
at what point when you met Mark did he break it to you about his Bigfoot activity?
One of the first dates. Seriously. He broke it in right at the start. I remember him saying, "What did I think about Bigfoot?" And I told him, I said, "Well, I don't have any experience with it." I said, "But I believe that there are things out there that we don't get to see and hear about. I believe that there could be vampires, there could be werewolves, there could be, all this stuff." I said, "I get to see ghosts and experience that sort of thing already. So why not?"
Now, I know last week you said something about you've had some paranormal events in your life. What were those like?
I've never had anything that's traumatic. Well, let me back that up. One of my first, well, it wasn't the first one, the second one, the second place that I was at was a little traumatic because I was by myself. And this mirror got thrown off of a wall. And it was in a position that you knew it didn't land that way on purpose. So that was kind of like an eye-opening experience for me. I've never had that sort of experience again, even. The house I moved into right out of foster care is really where I remember more of the paranormal starting. It probably started way before that, but I have like most of my childhood blocked out. I was in this house, and I was in the kitchen one day, and I was making some lunch or a cake. I don't even remember what it was. I was there by myself at the time. I had a roommate. She was at work. We worked opposite shifts at times, and the radio cut on. I didn't turn that radio on. It turned on by itself. So I turned it off. It turned back on. I unplugged it, and it turned back on. I was like, "Wow, you're scaring me. You need to stop." And it stopped. Everything settled back down. There was a metal shelf in the living room, the little cheap metal storage shelves. I was making minimum wage of $4.25 an hour back then. It might have been $3.75 back then. I don't remember. That was all I could afford. I bought a metal shelf to store stuff on. When I had music playing of my own free will, you could hear something tap into the beat of the music.
This was when you were by yourself and you rented your own home.
Well, it was with this other person. So we rented the house together.
A roommate.
Yes. And in the process of this, she had a cat run across the foot of her bed that wasn't there. We had a cat playing with coat hangers off of a mantle for over a fireplace that wasn't there. We had a rocking chair, believe it or not, a rocking chair noise with no rocking chair. We had a small boy's face in the back door of the kitchen. It was kind of like old house. They added on the bathroom and laundry room later, so you'd go out this door to the back door that they added on, and so it's kind of that sort of a move to a little hallway in the bathroom back there. So in that doorway, you could see a small boy's face. When we moved in, there was stains in the tub. I know you've seen like rust stains in old metal tubs and stuff. We got it all cleaned up. Don't know how we did it, but we got it all cleaned up. There was no more stains. We started talking, and the tub always dripped. We got that fixed. We started talking about moving out. The stains came back. The tub started dripping, and things just started being moved around when we talked about moving out. So one of the first experiences, I forgot, the first experience, we were moving in, and we put everything in and went to go get another load from either her place or my place, whatever it was. And we came back to the door wide open. We knew that we locked that door when we left. So we went running to the police station because we were young. I was 18, she was 19. We went running to the police station. Somebody's broken our house. Somebody's broken the house. Of course, there's no signs of forced entry. There was nobody in the house, thank goodness. And here's the part I don't like to tell people because it's mixed discussion on it. We had a friend later on that brought a Ouija board into the house. And the Ouija board said that the door was opened for us to welcome us. That there was a death in the house next door to us, a violent death. And that was part of what some of the haunting at our house was. And that also a young boy had died in the bathroom.
Oh, which was the face and
the stains.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you think that there are times in your life, especially with everything, you survived in your life, or should I say you conquered in your life? Do you think sometimes there are certain people that have that energy about them where there's been a lot of negativity and you're keeping your chin up and you're keeping your head above water, but it's like a battle, and it's almost like there's a presence out there that seems to sense that if you just trip once, you'll get set back so far, and it's kind of attracted to.
Yes.
I don't know if I said that because I don't know if I said that.
I understood it, even if you didn't say it correctly. Yes, there is a sense of something out there that sometimes I feel like I'm just going to trip one time.
Waiting for you to drop your guard. What I'm thinking. Waiting for you to drop your guard. Waiting for you to have a weak moment. I think it's like it's waiting for you to have a weak moment before it moves in.
It does. It does. And I am, you can ask Mark, I don't relax. I don't let my guard down because, like you said, I'm always treading water, trying to keep above the bad stuff.
You're scared to relax.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that.
Yep.
I think August 23rd, when I do your show, remind me of this conversation, and I'll explain to you why I kind of knew that, and just because I'll be a scatterbrain because it unnerves me to talk about my experience.
Okay.
So you're going to have to bring that out in me.
You'll have to tell Mark because I will forget.
Okay, but I get it. I get it. It's almost like if you drop it's like there's something there waiting, the negativity and the darkness that you have stepped out of. It is waiting for that moment where you drop your
Yes.
guard to kind of move back in. Like
Yes.
you're not ready for the battle, and
No.
it's just waiting for that one moment you just
Yep.
drop it. I get that.
Yep.
I get that. So you was that the last of it? The little boy dying and the face in the hall.
Yeah. We had stuff that got moved around, lost a pair of glasses. The Ouija board said they were up in the attic. Needless to say, nobody ever went up in the attic to verify that. We just moved on out. That was the last of that house. I mean, here and there, I've had, different things where I'll look around and there'll be somebody standing there, only it's not somebody really standing there. It's a spirit. The owner of this house is still here. He smokes in the bathroom, and he has a path from the third bedroom that's now my craft room. He will walk from there to the bathroom to smoke and then go back. He has stopped in front of my bedroom because I don't sleep with doors shut. It's a weird claustrophobic thing. It's more of having an escape route than it is claustrophobic. I have to have the door open, but the closet door has to stay shut. But he stopped at the door and looked at me, and I looked at him, and somebody gave me a picture of what he looked like, and I was like, yep, that's him. That's the dude that was in the hallway looking at me. He's in this house still. We'll hear different things. We'll hear footsteps, different things like that. They're up on the hunting club. I don't remember if we were having our live that night. I think we were having a live up at the hunting club by the sign-in board. And I looked off on a side road, and there was a guy standing there. I can't remember now if it was blue jeans or overalls. I think it was overalls and a ball cap. And I described him to Mark, and Mark said, that sounds like the guy that lived up on the mountain with the orchard. I was like, okay. One of the trips we went on with Misty, saw a little girl at the graveyard. Somebody else confirmed that it was, the right age and all for that, because they had sensed it too or something. So I've always had this sort of thing. There's always been the woman in white or some figure somewhere that I get to see. I love the paranormal stuff. I do. I don't go out and actively research a lot, but I would love to.
Mm-hmm. That is something that I did up until my dad passed, and I just couldn't do it anymore. So I get that. And you're talking about Misty. That's on the she's a pistol. Yeah, she's a pistol, ain't she? That's boy, I love me some. She's awesome. She is pretty awesome. So moving on. You get on your property. What was your first, because it's a Bigfoot show, we have to go into Bigfoot. What was your first experience? What were you like, I'll never have an experience? What was that first moment like?
I have not had the actual seeing of Bigfoot except for one time. Wow. When I saw it, it was nothing but like a rolling fog. Now, as far as experiences go, they started at the other house. When Mark and I first moved in together back in 2013, we lived down the road from Creepy Mountain. They knew where he lived, and they were there a lot. Wow. There was a cycle that went, I don't remember how big the property was, but the back half and the front half had two different feels. So when the Bigfoot were in the back half, the paranormal was in the front half. And then it would cycle around and be the opposite. Now, the main reason I bring up the other place is that, and we had livestock there, rabbits, chickens, small stuff. Most people would be losing stuff at that property to predators of any sort. We never had a predator.
Wow. It tells you everything has an energy. Everything has an energy.
Yeah. So I believe that the Bigfoot were kind of watching out for Mark and protecting his stuff. Then we moved to the next house, which is by the church that he grew up at. There were times my daughter saw Bigfoot. I got to see footprints and more evidence than anything. Mostly footprints. We've got footprints in the snow, footprints in the leaves where, like, if it rained, you could tell if leaves were disturbed because there'd be dry spots. You could see the footprints. There was a neighbor that talked about kids in ghillie suits.
The ghillie suits.
Yeah. And again, we're not far from Creepy Mountain at that property that we were at either. It was pretty much the same road, but across the 4-lane highway. Wow. Same road, maybe a mile or two at the most. His mom's property was right around the corner. I saw footprints in her garden, showed them to Mark. His mom heard stuff at the house. I think her mom even had her own experiences with Bigfoot herself. But then we came to this house, and right off the bat, we have the feeling, because I can feel them. I can't see them, but I can sense them. So at the other end of our property, there was something in the woods watching us. Wasn't sure if it was the same Bigfoot family or if it was a new one. We were just kind of trying to figure it out. Nothing bad happened. Just, again, mostly it's a feeling of being watched. We would hear stuff occasionally. I know a lot of people talk about a white dog. We had a white dog out in the woods, and we would try to go to the woods to get the dog to come out because it was like it was trapped. We thought, come to find out, there wasn't no white dog. And then there was always one, a couple more times it happened. It wasn't a dog, but we could hear it and maybe catch a glimpse of something to keep leading us on. But we never did get anywhere. And I was like, well, we got to get out of this. And so we come back out of the woods and back up to the house. We had a friend of Mark's came with a bobcat and did some road work basically back into the woods to help with drainage. And they uprooted a couple of like privet hedges and stuff like that. One of them got pulled into the woods to like block a hole basically. And I looked at that and I said, Mark, did you do that? He said, no. I said, did Chris do that? He said, I don't know. Let me call him. And Chris said he didn't. All he did was the bobcat work. I was like, well, that's a Bigfoot. Done drug that in the woods for you. We have had water left on, running. Couple times we've had cage doors open to the rabbits. Luckily, most of the ones that the doors were open on were never took out. And they stayed in the cage, which was the strange part to me, because if the door is open, you're going to escape.
Big hairy guy out there. You might want to stay in your cage.
Yeah, and that's kind of what they did. They stayed in the cage. And I want to say a time or two I found what could be a footprint, but it wasn't defined enough to really tell. But you could always tell when you went in the rabbit barn. And when I say the rabbit barn, I had like 100 rabbits at one point. Wow. So we had a lot. But when you walk in the rabbit barn and everything starts going crazy because a big figure comes into the barn, you're like, what have they been seeing? Wow. So we have a lot of activity here.
Well, your animals will tell you a lot too.
Yeah. And again, we've not lost any. We've never lost chickens. We've never lost. Well, I say we've never lost. We lost a lot of chickens to our own dog, not Sister. Everybody knows Sister. But we had gotten a bird dog from one of Mark's cousins, and she was trained to birds. And I turned my back for a half a second, and she killed chickens right off the bat. She got off the run one day and killed 13.
Wow.
So we've lost more to our own animals than we've ever lost to a predator.
Has there ever been, other than going into woods and looking for the white dog, has there ever been a moment where you're like, I'm not comfortable? There's just something in
Not
the air.
really. Not really. We have had things knock on doors, rattle chains, like the
Wow.
gates. You know how they have a chain on a farm gate? We've had all that happening. Mark has been more uncomfortable than I have. For the most part, I haven't gotten a bad feel from here. There was one time up on Creepy Mountain where there was a moment that I looked at Mark and I said, it's time for us to go. I don't know what changed, but something changed in the vibe of the air there. And I was like, yep, it's time for us to go. But as far as being uncomfortable in my own home, there's never been that. Mark has been more worried about that than I have, especially with the video of the corn patch where everybody kept seeing all the faces in the corn patch. And I didn't feel them being there even. But when you look at the pictures, there's stuff in the corn patch.
When you are speaking to someone and they don't believe, not that you're trying to convince them, what would you tell them would be the most convincing thing you could tell someone that would probably just open their mind a little bit, maybe?
I pull out those pictures of the corn patch.
Wow.
Yep, that's the one. That's the one that gets all of them. Everywhere I have worked, I don't really have believers, but there usually is one person there that wants to talk about Bigfoot. And then when they start talking to me about it, of course, all the others are like, no. I'm like, come here. Let me show you this. So, yeah, the pictures in the corn patch. To every person that I have worked with since those pictures became a reality, they go, no. I'm like, yeah, look here. Explain that.
What is the story behind the pictures in the corn patch?
Mark was doing one of our fireside chat videos. And like I said, I was cutting grass or something on the mower in the front yard while he was filming the video. And he didn't see anything while he was out there. And we had one person send Mark some pictures of what was in the corn patch in the video. And there was a couple of them where you could see it moved.
Wow.
There's one that some of it, okay, I'm not one of those that takes every picture and says, oh, this is Bigfoot. I believe some of it is pareidolia, but there are some of those pictures that you can't deny. And Mark will just have to share those pictures with you, because when you see those pictures, you go, wow. Because it's not, we went back and watched the video even, and you can see it move in the video. So when you have that type of thing happen, you can't deny that. When you see it in a video and the picture, and yes, the picture got altered and enhanced, but you can see the same thing in the video moving without enhancement. There's something there. So.
Oh, I definitely believe you. When I was talking to Pat and Joe from Louisiana,
Love them.
I do love them. Joe, I kind of want to hit him over the head with a 2x4 sometime, and just
everybody does.
I know what's up with that. I guess he has that effect on people. The one thing that they said is the place, how the Bigfoot community and that circle of friends that they found, how that filled a void in each of their life. Do you find that's true with you and Mark?
Yes and no, but yes, a lot of it. Yes, we have made some awesome friends that we consider family just through the Bigfoot community. I moved here in 2013, like I've already said. I don't have a lot of people here that I know at all. because I go to work, I come back home, I go to work, I come back home. And the first couple years, I was at home full time and not going anywhere to meet people. And so the more we did with the Bigfoot community, the more I got to meet people, and see all. It's again kind of like that dating site I talked about. All the different aspects of life is represented there, and you get to learn so much more than what you already know. So they've all become family to us.
I tell people I'm there for the food and the adrenaline.
Yep. Yep.
So we've been going almost an hour, and the thing is, I know you have to work tomorrow. What would you say to that person, to the woman or the man out there that's struggling and they are fighting for some kind of break in life or just a moment to breathe? What would you say to them?
The break comes. Sometimes you have to make it happen. Take that moment. Self-care is very important. I'd say the first thing that any person needs to do, regardless of what they've been through, is to learn to love themselves. When you learn to love yourselves, then you can learn to handle the things that get thrown at you.
So in the community with all of the personalities, you guys are kind of like the bedrock of where people go to, and people just are comfortable around you. Is that I mean, really, people are just really comfortable, and having so many friends, you know, your phone's constantly going, you're balancing work and everything else. But is that a welcomed responsibility, or is there a responsibility at all to it? I mean, it's
I like it. For me, I like it in doses, if that makes sense. Being who I am and everything that I've gone through, I have to have me time. I can't take crowds. And I'll be honest, not a lot of people have my phone number. And that's for a reason, because I get socialed out quickly. I can handle one-on-one, but to just sit there on the phone the entire time, I can't handle that. So text me. Text me, we'll talk back and forth. That way I can do it as I'm able and not have to think, oh, I've got to give this up to do this and do that. And, you know, I don't have to make choices as to what's more important that way. It's there when I get to it. When you're on the phone, you have to make choices. And one thing is going to lose, and I don't want something to lose, if that makes sense. I want everybody to feel like they're important, and I want to give it my all. And a phone call, I'm going to be constantly thinking about everything else that I am not doing while I'm on the phone. In a text, you've got my attention while I'm texting you. In a message, same thing. You've got my attention while I'm talking to you. And it's in little spurts that I can give it the importance that it needs. Now, if you need me right now, guess what? Pick up that phone. Call me. I am there for you. Everything that I've ever been through, I listen to what you've been through. And I can help. If nothing else, there's the old meme of, I may not be able to pull you into the light, but I can sit in the dark with you. That's I can awesome. Be there to help you sort through what you need to sort through. So I love that we are those people for people. But I have to keep myself back a little bit.
I think that's one of the most powerful things I've ever heard someone say. I can't help you out of the dark, but I'll sit there with you. Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, I'll say this, and while I'm saying it, at the end of each show, I try to give someone a moment to pay tribute to someone. But before we go into that, I want to say, with all I've heard tonight and all you've shared with me, I know you were having anxieties coming on. Actually, you cracked me up because you cleared out that room.
Don't tell Mark. He's home now.
Okay. Mark, don't watch this part. and through all that you shared, I see a woman that you didn't get a lot of breaks in life, but you made your own way. And what you have now, you have found someone that loves you, and
Yes.
you have that love in your life, that foundation. You have a beautiful life that you fought to get. I mean, it may come natural when you met Mark, but you fought to survive long enough to find that love and that life.
Most people that have been where I am have far more problems to deal with than I have dealt with. A lot of people that have been through half of the stuff I've been through are no longer with us. So yes, it's a fight.
You have You're a little fighter. You're like that little chihuahua that just don't stop. You just keep coming. You're like that chihuahua with the soul of a bulldog.
Yeah.
But you have amazing friends, and you have created a world that is not only a safe place, but it's for you, but it's a safe place for people to come and
Yeah.
laugh, have fun, and enjoy life. And I think that makes you an absolutely amazing and strong woman. And I
Thank
think
you.
you're incredible.
Thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am. And that's as sincere as and that comes from the heart. So at the end of each show, I always give someone a moment. You take as long as you want to pay tribute to someone. Is there someone you would like to pay tribute to?
Well, oh, we got to do that big screen. Oh my goodness. I love my husband more than anything that there is. He has helped me be who I am and lives with me when I'm not where I want to be. He puts up with a lot. I tell him all the time he is not allowed to go first because he can't leave the world to deal with me. So love him more than he will ever know. My daughter, Ella is the pain in my sides, but I love her. I would do anything that there is in the world to do for her. Um, and with as bad as my life was growing up, I am a lot like my parents and grandparents. I take after my dad in that I'm going to make it work one way or another. I'm going to find a way. And I'm like my grandmother in that I love the old ways of doing things and all that. So I guess that's my tribute to people. And the one person that is most important throughout my entire life is God, actually. Because without him watching over me every step of the way and making some things that I have been through easier, without that, I wouldn't be here. I give that to God. So yeah, and that's it.
You're right. All things are possible through God.
Yep.
And Becca, you're a beautiful woman with a beautiful soul. And thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it.
I will have you back. I promise.
Okay.
You have a wonderful evening.
You too.